On today's Hot Zone, I'm at the bus station in Medellin, Colombia, and I'm trying to figure out how much it costs these migrants to get from Congo or someplace in Africa to the United States, and also who's paying for it. That's coming up on today's podcast.
This is the Hot Zone. Engaging with the news in a whole new way, international war correspondent Chuck Holton brings insight into areas of crisis and lets you help those affected.
So one of the questions I keep having when I meet these migrants that are coming from Africa and Bangladesh and Asia and all over the world is, how exactly are they getting here and how are they paying for all this? I'm at the bus station in Medellin, Colombia today, and this place is one of the stopovers for these migrants. And so as I try to trace their route to get to the United States, what I'm finding is that almost all of them fly originally to Ecuador. And that's because Ecuador is about the only country in the Western Hemisphere that doesn't require a visa to get in for people coming from those African countries. The crazy thing is many of them connect through Panama to get to Ecuador and then proceed to make their way back into Panama. The way they do that is by getting on buses. It takes them, it sounds like about a week at this point to get from Ecuador, Quito, where they fly into, up to Turbo before they start their walk through the Darien. And I was just checking bus tickets. That costs them probably about little over $200, and it's a whole lot of time sitting on a bus. But they take a bus from Quito to the Ecuadorian border with Colombia, change buses, and then take a bus here to Medellin, change buses again, and take the next bus all the way to Turbo, which is another 9-hour drive north of here. Like I say, all of that is about $200. And I would imagine that they probably sleep on the bus so they don't have to spend a lot on hotels. If they do, there are very inexpensive hotels for $10 a night or less that can be found just about anywhere in Colombia. So you got the Good Nith Hotel over there where a lot of the migrants end up staying, right up here. And they stay at what they call residenciales, which is like somebody's house, kind of like an Airbnb type thing without the internet. But they pay about $5, $4 or $5 for a room for the night. Usually shared room, shared bathroom, that sort of thing. Yeah. Do you speak English? No. And it's obviously not the greatest neighborhood. There's strip joints and stuff kind of scattered around. This is the downtown area of Turbo. It's not much to write home about, that's for sure. And I'm just going to turn the camera around and show you one of the residential hotels that I'm talking about. You can see there, that's what we're talking about, not much. So once they get there and they have to walk through the Darien and then they begin their journey up through Central America to the United States. My other question is, where are they getting the money to pay for all this? Because the plane tickets coming from Africa, I'm going to Africa shortly, and so I've been checking into those. The absolute cheapest airfare you can get from, say, Cameroon is probably $1,400 or a little more. And so I've been asking some of these migrants where they're getting the money to make this journey. Omar Cáceres is a Cuban migrant preparing to walk through the Darien jungle. He says he hasn't really made any preparations for the difficult journey ahead, and that his friends and family in the United States have promised to send him money to help him on his journey through Central America. And the disturbing thing that I'm finding about that is that many of them are getting the money from friends and relatives who are already in the United States. So this is what we call chain migration. You have some family or friend who goes to the U.S., they work or get signed up for a welfare program or whatever, or both, and then they send the money that they make back to their home country to finance the next wave of migration coming to the United States. And there are some very concerning things about that, especially when you take into account the social welfare that so many of these immigrants are able to get, and especially how good they are at gaming that system. And again, I've said this many times, I don't think you can blame them for coming. I don't think you can blame them for using the system that we have in place. I just think that maybe the system needs to be looked at perhaps to try to find a way to stop this mass migration. And we've talked about this with guests on the show before. I think that taxing remittances pretty heavily would go a long way towards slowing that chain migration down. So that's one thing that ought to be looked at. So tell me why you decided to leave Cameroon.
Okay. I decided to leave Cameroon because of the struggle. The struggle all started when Cameroon decided to have an independent, like we tried to separate from the French Cameroon to the English Cameroon, because Cameroon is a Francophone region, which we have the Anglophone and the Francophone.
Right.
So the issue is
go ahead.
The issue is the president is from the Francophone. He's like trying to intimidate the Anglophone, which like we don't have like nobody's up to take us high or
I understand.
Yes.
So explain to me how you got here.
Okay. I got here through the middle.
From Cameroon.
Yeah. When the struggle all started, I was like, because I'm a student, I stopped school in opposite. Yeah, because of the struggle. So I was one of the youth that like we're trying to participate through the struggle to make everything comes well. So it all started with a peaceful demonstration on the street when the soldiers now started using live bullet on us. So once they take note of you that you have once been how can I put it?
Yeah, you've been in the protest.
Yes, you've been in the protest. They will look for you.
Okay.
So they have been looking for me ever since. So I've been on the run since in Cameroon.
Wow.
Yeah. So I have to look for a lawyer to like try to get me out of Cameroon, because I've been in a hiding now for Cameroon for over like 2 years now. Since the war started, I've been in a hiding.
Wow.
Yeah, so the lawyer, I don't know how he did it, but he succeeded to get me out of there and brought me to the border to Cameroon from Nigeria. So when I arrived the border, they have to like do some little bits of research, so I have to like take off myself out of there. Then I went now to Nigeria. When I got to Nigeria, I had to stay there for a few days in Nigeria. When I discovered that there in Nigeria was not safe, I was afraid of deportation. I tried to like take a little bit step forward. I have a friend in Nigeria, so I tried to take some few inquiries from him. He tried to like help me to get a visa, here to Ecuador. Like we passed through Istanbul, that's in Turkey. Then we stopped at Panama. Then now we came to Ecuador. So we are trying to walk now back to Panama. From Panama, that's how we go to enter America, which that would be more safe for us.
Into the United States.
Into the United States.
And what do you expect this journey will be like?
I don't know. I heard it's a tough run, but I don't know. We just pray God to guide us through.
There's so many migrants that have showed up today that they're having to get more boats to put them in. This is something they're saying they're seeing more and more, is that many of the migrants here are not from Cuba. They're not from Latin America. They're from Africa, Bangladesh, all over the world. And many of them have only been on the road for a few days because they actually flew to Ecuador, and then they've taken buses from there up to right here in Turbo, Colombia. From here, They take this boat behind me about 2 hours off that direction, and they go to a place called Capragana, and from there they start to walk. And it could be 6 or 8 days in the jungle, especially if they get lost or whatever. They've got a hard road ahead. One of the things that I find curious about this whole migration issue, especially the people who are walking through the Darien jungle to get to the United States, is that we see so few Venezuelans doing that. The vast majority of the people that are walking through the jungle are either Cuban, I think about 40%, or from somewhere else around the world, overseas, Africa, Asia, what have you. But we see very, very few Venezuelans walking through the Darien Gap, and I'm not really sure why that is. If I had to guess, I would say it's because the first country that most of them come to when they leave Venezuela is here in Colombia, and Colombia actually treats them pretty well. By some estimates, they've got more than 1.4 million Venezuelans in Colombia today, and probably more than that. But you see them on every street corner. You see them out selling things, washing windows, begging, whatever they can do to try to make a little money. And I don't think they're allowed to actually get a work permit, but what they do is they just kind of go full capitalist and, find something to sell or whatever. But it's actually a pretty nice place to live here. And it makes me wonder why more of the Africans and other people who are coming over here don't decide to just stay in Ecuador or Brazil or Colombia or one of the many countries that they have to cross to get to the United States. I mean, I get it. The U.S. is one of the best places to live in the world, but it's not the only nice place to live in the world. There are lots of places around the world that are safer than Cameroon, for Pete's sake, and you could go and live there and have a very nice life. It's a lot less expensive than the United States. The taxes are lower, et cetera, et cetera. So there could be a great argument to be made for these people just staying in one of the countries that they get to first. And I think that's why it's important that the Trump administration is pursuing this safe third country agreement with Mexico, and also one with Guatemala. And I think they ought to go ahead and extend that to Ecuador and Colombia and every other country. I mean, Ecuador is one of the places where a lot of Americans are going to retire. It's a very nice place to live. It's safe, it's stable, it's comfortable, it's cheap. So it's not like Ecuador is a war-torn country, but I think they just make it very hard for people to work and make a living there, and that's got to have something to do with it. So, in the United States, it's not legal for somebody to work if they are an illegal alien. They can't get a work permit, but yet they do, and they do here as well. They work doing all sorts of things. And so it just seems like there's got to be a more holistic approach at this issue, and trying to make it easier and indeed more inviting for people that feel like they need to leave their home country because of the violence to stay somewhere else besides the United States. This guy behind me is standing out here in the road where it's kind of washed out and is fixing potholes, and that's one way they make a little money. They fix potholes and then they stand there and ask for donations to fix the road, which, if you ask me, is a really good idea, especially out here. So I'm staying at this hotel in downtown Medellin, and it has a casino attached to it. So when I checked in, they gave me like $20 to go play at the casino, which I hate doing. Not only is it boring, but it's a total waste of money. But if it's somebody else's money, then what the heck? So I went in and I won about $5. I got about $5 ahead of the house. And if there's anything I learned growing up in Carson City, Nevada, in a state where gambling was legal, it's that if you ever get ahead of the house, cash in your chips. So I did. And now I'm going to take that money, my ill-gotten gains, and I'm going to go find some homeless guy and give it to him, because that sounds like a good rule, right? If God gives you money for free that you didn't earn, you go give it to somebody who needs it more than you do. So that's what I'm doing.
There we go. That's exactly what I was looking for. Hola. Hey.
So that's all I got for today's show, folks. Thanks for being a part of the Hot Zone. I hope you'll like and share us on iTunes and Facebook and YouTube and everywhere else. We're growing fast, and part of the reason I think is because we're bringing you ground truth from crisis areas around the globe. We're going to let you see what the media won't show you and answer your questions. We got a lot more of that coming up. So thanks for being a part of it. I'm Chuck Holton. You're watching the Hot Zone.
The Hot Zone is produced by Amy Holton and Livefire Media. Copyright 2019.